Namaste, sir. Today I've got something a little bit different for you. On this channel, we usually deal with the past. But today, we're going to discuss something that's rather strange and is still ongoing. You see, my buddy Sargon Avocad released a video asking why so many Indian people fall victim to accidents involving trains, and why they're so cocksure and blasé about the prospect of getting hit by such massive death machines. Well, I don't know, Carl. How come whenever we play Mount and Blade, your men always keep getting hit by my cavalry? But anyway, this is an interesting question. And you know what? The more I thought about it, the more fascinated I became. Until I decided, okay, I'll do it for you, Carl. I'll do it for you. I'm your top guy. So I put my top guy on the case.
The mean streets of downtown New Delhi, where the traveling broads don't eat or love, but they certainly pray. I'm neck deep in the shit and my investigation ain't even started. You know, I once thought I could clean up this town. When your source finds a body in the Ganges, you gotta tell them to narrow it down. That changes a man. Something stinks here and I gotta figure out what. Ticket punched and not even on board. What could drive a man to do this? Must have been some day. What's this? A Brahmin. Ah, Jesus, this goes all the way to the top. Gotta check this out with my informant later. I swear to God, that fish knew something. Bastard's always trying to curry favor. Can't blame him. City this crowded, you're rubbing shoulders with everyone. I better watch my step.
So, after a long and grueling investigation, my intrepid investigator has reported back. Now, most people think that it's just complete stupidity that created all of those live leak videos. And it still is mostly just that, but it does turn out that there might actually be a deep historical and cultural reason for why Indian people do this. So, let's take a look at his findings together and find out why Indian people are always getting hit by trains. Juggernaut theory. Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm. Oh hi, didn't see you there. If you're a gamer like me, you'll know that too long hunched over a desk can cause posture issues and back pain. And sometimes you wish you could practice your secret jujitsu finishing move by standing up while working. Well, thanks to FlexiSpot, you can. Whether for health reasons or simply having a job or hobby that requires a change in the height of your workstation, you can achieve a whole new level of comfort with the E7 Pro standing desk. My staff especially love it because they like to pace around the office a lot while they think. So not having to get up and sit down every single time they want to make notes or turn their stream of consciousness into scripts has been very handy for them. And the spectrum of my minion stimming habits is just as wide as this bad boy's range of motion, which adjusts between 25 inches and, this is awkward, which adjusts between 25 and 50.6 inches in height with a dual motor 3-stage semi-C leg structure. It's nice to finally have a desk that my kids can't climb on. The Black Templars have almost been completely wiped out by the 5th Chaos God known as Ginger Toddler. And I could fit so many points on this bad boy because it has a standing capacity of 440 pounds. as you can see, which is definitely a lot more than I weigh. I promise. But that also means that this unit is so sturdy that a pretty little thing like you can even... join me up here. But not only is the E7 Pro strong, it's also stable. You won't have to worry about all of your stuff wobbling around while moving the desktop up and down. And, as if the deal couldn't get any sweeter, FlexiSpot also offers a 15-year warranty and a 30-day risk-free return service. So, take a stand by clicking my link in the description box down below or going to flexispot.com and using my code YTE730 to get $30 off of the E7 Pro. Or, if you have a limited budget, you can choose their E7. And feel free to check out their other standing desks and ergonomic chairs as well, which are available with site-wide discounts for medical purposes, for students and graduates, for teachers, and even for the military. Hoorah! But anyway, back to the video. I must go now. Look, I am aware that by diving into this topic, I am running the risk of getting out of my lane here and there, and that some of what I'm about to present may smack of conjecture. However, I am not looking to make any definitive statements. Generalizations, absolutely, hashtag not all and all that, but no opinions stated, implied, or coming to you in a dream are my own, or held by anyone working for or representing the Count Dankula YouTube channel. I can't say that no offence is intended because I'm me, but I don't intend to smear anyone enough to cause an international incident or draw the ire of Indians, especially when they make up 99% of the content moderators on YouTube. Ribbings are guaranteed, but don't worry, I'm not a serious person. At the end of the day, I'm no sociologist. Just an internet schizo with an interest in trains and other cultures, just presenting a simple theory. Now, with all of that out of the way, in 2011, railway deaths in India were recorded at 25,000 per year. So, fuck's up with that? Well, if you have ever seen any picture of any Indian train, you will know that most of those lives were cut short by Occam's razor. The trains are too fucking crowded. In 2016, there were only 11,000 trains to serve over 1 billion people, and well over 18 million tickets are sold every single day. There's nowhere near enough space for everyone, so it's just taken for granted that anyone who can't pack themselves into the carriages like sardines will just climb onto the top of the train or hang off the sides. And then, at a rate of 2 per hour in 2020, they will fall off, get electrocuted by overhead power cables, or get whacked by poles and signposts next to the tracks. And most importantly, not learning that deciding against keeping your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times is a fucking stupid idea. And even worse, it's not just the passengers that keep falling, but the trains themselves, which get derailed all too often. This is due to the strain of the excessive weight from overcrowded trains, the consequences of running aged and poorly maintained trains, the rails themselves succumbing to untreated wear and tear from the temperature fluctuations of extreme weather events warping the steel itself, signalling failures, or just basic bitch human error. While most of the network has been electrified in recent years, it's still in dire need of expansion and a facelift. Especially since some of the more rural services have barely been updated since the Raj. Oh, and you're going to love this one, hot off the presses, even the fucking trains are getting hit by trains. But that doesn't account for all of those railway injuries. Sure, getting on an Indian train is almost tantamount to suicide, but what about all of the unlucky bastards who get hit by the damn things? And why does it happen so often that there are montages of all of these incidents all over the internet? I'm obviously not going to show you any of that footage in this video. But why is it almost always recorded, and why is the demeanour of those involved always so casual? Well, I think it's cultural, and a result of India being very caste-brained. There is a concept among Indians called Izzat, which is essentially a reputation-based honour system, or a face culture. And it is taken very seriously. Not just on the individual level, but one is expected to also maintain and elevate the honour of their family and caste, which manifests in a whole range of ways. You've got the noble ways, such as almost 1.5 million Indians volunteering to fight in the Great War, to the amusing ways, like our favourite daily performance of affected Chaudhary, to the piss-take ways, like elevating one family's honour with a healthy dose of nepotism. Right down to the downright insidious ways, like restoring honour through honour killings that sadly still happen. Or preserving honour and projecting loyalty through a practice known as sati, which no longer happens. You're welcome. But to lighten the tone a little bit, the reason why I'm bringing up Izzat is the fact that India is very much a culture of aura farming. Ironically. And it's very heavily dialed up by social media. We all know what status games are like among friend groups and smaller communities, but when that arena expands to the entire internet, you really need to go big or go home when you're showing off. So, the stunts and feats of bravery that chronically online Indians try to pull off just get more and more outrageous. And we have the receipts to prove it because India is the world's capital in what has been dubbed kilfies, which are selfies that resulted in the deaths of their subjects. And they are such a disproportionately large problem in India that the state, the Indian government itself, has mounted campaigns to try and discourage them. And I think that's why we've got so many headlines of Indians getting hit by trains while taking selfies. You can just take a picture with a train from a safe distance. I'm sure all of you know that firsthand, it's not that fucking hard. But these guys are so close to the trains that I can only assume that they're playing a sort of online game of chicken with the trains, looking to mog their friends by being the one who got the closest. Other ridiculous stunts that one can only fathom as attempts to flex include lying on the tracks and letting the train pass over them, taking selfies and running too close to the tracks, and making a big show of riding on top of the trains. And Izzat isn't just about projecting a certain image, but also maintaining it by any means necessary, which can result in serious reprisals against others if they get one over on you, because the flip side of honour is shame. You see, there are 3 types of societies: guilt-based, shame-based, and fear-based. The more often than not Western guilt-based societies are enforced on the more individual level, with the emphasis being on personal conscience, i.e., you feel bad because you did something wrong. And shame-based societies tend to operate more collectively, where others look down on you because you did something wrong. Essentially, in guilt-based societies, wrongdoing is bad for your soul. And in shame-based societies, wrongdoing is bad for your social standing. Therefore, the latter places great emphasis on honour based on your behaviour. Not just in maintaining it for yourself, but also getting even if someone dishonours you. This is rather important because as a shame-based society, it means that India is essentially a nation of Season 1 Zucos who exhibit a similar level of decision-making. Hence the so-called kilfies and a fuck you got mine attitude that leads to other wildly dangerous activities that we're going to get into a little bit later. I mean,
what are you going to do? Not pile on to the top and side of the train like everybody else? Are you some kind of pussy? You're not just going to let that train driver pull away without you on board, are you? You fucking mug. You bloody fuck. Be a man and run across multiple sets of live train tracks to get to your platform like the rest of us. After all, so what if you die? What is there to be afraid of? You'll just come back again. And if you die, you probably had it coming for something a past you did anyway. So what's the big deal? Yeah, I've got a little bit of a feeling that whole reincarnation and karma thing might also play a role in this. You all know what karma is. The cause and effect of one's actions in past lives affecting their future lives, whether for good or ill. It tends to lead one to believe that the bad things happening to them were largely predetermined by whatever their past selves were up to, which can result in an unhealthy degree of fatalism. Well, unhealthy, but absolute. Karma doesn't result in the whole future being written in stone like in Islam. Hindus' choices still matter. But whatever their past selves were up to just means that they are playing with a stacked deck. Or, in this case, a stacked train. But even so, with all of that in mind, surely dying is just whatever. What's the worst that could happen? A mulligan. I mean, if you unflinchingly run across 2 train tracks to reach a platform and you get turned into strawberry jam, well, that could be only good for your karma, right? Like how the best way to achieve fame in Night City is to die in a blaze of gunfire and glory. Surely, swaggering across and laying down the gauntlet against tons and tons of locomotive death and getting obliterated without a care in the world would earn you at least some karma points to unlock a buff or two in the weirdest roguelike of all time. It certainly seems that way because Indians are very, very far from risk-averse, especially when it comes to driving. India's roads are so dire not just because they're always gridlocked, but because people are always jostling and cutting each other up to get to where they need to be first. They don't want anyone getting past them or holding them up. Again, face culture. The same goes for other insane antics like pedestrians and cyclists yelling Leroy Jenkins at level crossings or crossing tracks at stations to get onto other platforms. God damn it, they will catch their train even if it's the last thing they ever do. And it just fucking might be. Sheer carelessness continues to be a big killer outside of the stations, with rural migrant workers and pilgrims just milling around and even sleeping on the tracks. But it might not just be a case of indifference. They simply might not know better. You see, the average IQ in India is 76, which is 6 points above what is considered an intellectual disability. Sorry, I just wanted to hear everyone's arseholes clenching when I brought up race and IQ. But anyway, for reference, the average IQ of most Western countries is around 100. I don't point this out to call Indian people stupid or anything like that. God knows, those extra points that we have really do us Western midwits no fucking favours. Just look at the fucking state of us. But I bring it up because it could be an explanatory factor in our train conundrum. You see, lower IQ people do tend to be more impulsive and partake in more risky and dangerous behaviour. Like answering nature's call just to find out that gravity was also calling. They also tend to have a higher time preference, i.e. prioritising the now over the future. Therefore, even if there are other trains to wait for, it might simply just not occur to them to just wait for the next fucking train. As far as many Indians are concerned, they did have breakfast this morning, and now they have a fucking train to catch. For its size, India has been developing rather rapidly. But the process still only started just very recently. So some parts of India are a little bit civilizationally, to put it delicately, lagging behind. 40% of the country wasn't even electrified in the year 2000, though this is practically universal now. 12.5%, or about 160 million Indian people, still lack toilets. And 45% of Indians are still without internet. Thank fucking God. But the problem is that when a country advances so quickly, it can take time for the people themselves to catch up. See also boomers and literally anything with a CPU in it. But, like how boomers got spiritually one-shotted by the colourful screens powered by those CPUs, could those rural pilgrims and migrant workers be milling around on the tracks on purpose? Could they have seen those massive steel locomotives for the first time and developed a very darkly religious fascination with them? Because you see, despite these trains being sort of new, to the old school Indian people, they might be surprisingly familiar. Now, I know that you're all asking, why trains in particular? Well, there is one possible explanation. The juggernaut. You may have read a certain green text before, and I've got a feeling that it might give us a little bit of a hint as to why this might be the case. As you can see, OP posits that the Indian psyche has something deep-seated in the primordial monkey brain that really wants to get absolutely fucking crushed by something absolutely fucking huge. To the point where children are sacrificed to giant temples on wheels. So let's take a look at the veracity of the claims here and see if OP might have stumbled upon the key to all of this. First off, I think we can safely dismiss the last bit about cows and elephants. In Indian culture, cows are sacred. Not just because they're big and dangerous, but because they are religiously symbolic mother figures. And who doesn't love elephants? God certainly loves elephants. The term juggernaut, which to us refers to a huge, unstoppable, destructive force, actually comes from the Indian Sanskrit word juggernaut, which means Lord of the World. It is a giant idol of the god Krishna on wheels that gets rolled out alongside idols of the other gods Balabhadra and Subhadra. And you can see why the word juggernaut got its meaning from these temple chariot things, because they are absolutely fucking massive. Being 96 feet tall, weighing over 300 tons, and needing thousands of people to pull them along. Amusingly, their weight does get them stuck in the mud a lot. The juggernauts come out for an annual festival called Rath Yatra. A few take place across India, but the biggest and most attractive location to pilgrims is in Puri, Odessa, because canonically that's where the three gods live. And Rath Yatra is a massive deal, because back in the day, the untouchable caste weren't allowed into the temples. So this was the one chance for everyone to see their gods all at once. And it seems like a few people got a little bit carried away by the sheer majesty of the juggernauts. And they sacrificed themselves to the gods underneath the wheels. According to a New York Times article from 1864 with a lot of gory details, an intrepid visitor to the festival said, and I quote, "Saw upon the ground a very old woman, all wrinkled and puckered up, with scarcely a lineament of her face recognisable for blood and dust. Her right foot was hanging by a thread. The wheels had passed over the centre of her nearly naked body, and a faint quiver of anguish ran through her frame as she seemed to struggle to rise." Another body that fell victim to the religious frenzy was described as, and I quote, "but a heap of mangled flesh." However, the author also reported that the authorities did step in to try and stop any would-be martyrs from literally painting the town red, which is also mentioned in footage held by British Pathy that I sadly can't show here because British Pathy are massive copyright hawks. Just look up Juggernaut on their YouTube channel whilst refraining from flaming them in the comments, because I know what you're all fucking like. But anyway, the guards clearly weren't enough of a deterrent because the deaths were still ubiquitous enough that the Juggernaut, quote, crushed out of life with every revolution of its hideous wheels, covered as they were with human flesh and gore.
I'm the juggernaut, bitch!
Okay.
No! No, no,
Yes.
no, no, no!
Also marking out the deaths as just rather routine was the fact that the Brahmins were reported as being completely fucking unfazed about the horror unfolding before them. Though this could just as likely be casteism. However, the author also suggests that these self-sacrifices are covered up as accidents and that the numbers are actually downplayed because the authorities know that it's just not a fucking good look. And self-sacrifice is a common theme in accounts of the juggernaut that reached the West in the 19th century, with this artist's rendition from 1837 being very, very explicit about how its subjects died. And rather damningly, after the invention of the camera, photographic evidence emerged. Like this snapshot from 1931 of a British man pulling 2 children away from the juggernaut's wheels. And unless those children were just auditioning for roles in Prometheus, it really looks to me like they were just sitting right in front of those wheels on purpose. However, there are contrasting contemporary accounts. An 1873 report in the College Courant suggests that the impression of human sacrifice to the juggernaut came from foreigners who were witnessing just accidents. It also says that the religious texts concerning the festival make no mention whatsoever of sacrifice, and that dying in a temple renders the temple unclean. So, with all of that in mind, why desecrate a temple on wheels with your own blood? It is a compelling case for the deaths being just accidents. But the article does concede that the odd suicide does happen. Specifically, not self-sacrifice, but some severely ill, wretched soul seeking a quick opportunity to check out and end their suffering. But still, if you don't mean to get crushed, then why are you purposefully standing right in front of the giant crushing literal juggernaut? And also, if it really is just a bunch of accidents, then that's a lot of fucking accidents. But the juggernaut deaths really could just be accidents. Because everyone at the festival really, really wants to go up and touch the fucking things. And the crowds are so big that you won't be surprised to hear that unfortunate souls often get killed in stampedes or caught under the juggernaut's wheels because so many people are rushing forward to touch the things that they just get shoved right under the wheels. Unfortunately, as recently as 2010, the crowds around the juggernauts have killed people. However, these days security is kept pretty tight and crowd control measures are in place to minimise the chances of things going awry. But they can only do so much with such a huge and rowdy crowd. And the security forces are probably there looking for a different kind of suicidal religious maniac anyway. I couldn't find any modern sources directly corroborating the green text claim about Indians playing chicken with the juggernaut. But as we discussed with the selfie deaths, I can hardly assume that they are hardly above such behaviour. Besides, dying horribly must be good for one's karma upon reincarnation. And they must be pretty reassured by this because they're so blasé around trains that they even let their cows graze right next to the tracks. And you'd think they would be more careful with those. By the way, since cows are sacred, would getting killed by a cow that was hit by a train be a net positive or negative? Is being killed by a cow bad karma? Would that cancel out the holiness of getting hit by a train? Or does one have a greater effect than the other? Despite the cow, was the train still strong enough to launch the poor bastard into paradise? Or was the train an outright net positive because getting smited by a cow rather than causing bad karma was actually a punishment for bad karma, which wiped the guy's debt clean and left him with the extra train credit to use in the next life? I don't fucking know. Indian beliefs are confusing. Considering the mad scramble to touch the juggernauts every year, I don't struggle to believe that at least some aspiring juggernauts were hitching a ride to paradise under the wheels. Christ, by some comically dark coincidence, trains have even been known to plough right through Hindu festivals held on or near tracks. If these deaths are supposed to be accidents, why are you holding your festivals on fucking train tracks on purpose? That said, the reports of routine human sacrifice are almost certainly exaggerated. Human sacrifice, and especially child sacrifice, is a fairly common stick to lambast other religions with, from Carthage to Tenochtitlan. And the juggernaut has even been directly compared to Moloch. And if you don't know who Moloch is, don't worry, he knows you, but most of you are not ready for that conversation. Keep your cross in your chest and your rifle by your side. But anyway, like most reports coming from Christian missionaries and Western visitors to far-off lands, the juggernaut stories usually came with a heavy tone of moralistic, look at this pagan nonsense undertones. So, is there something to the green tech's juggernaut theory? Calling rural India rural is an understatement to say the least. While the cities are somewhat westernised and New Delhi even has a shiny new subway that might actually be cleaner than Glasgow's, India as a whole is nowhere near as developed as you would expect from the cities. It's almost like stepping 500 years backwards when venturing out into the Indian sticks. And there's a reason why the Federation in Star Trek has the prime directive: when you introduce people to an advanced technology way too quickly, it can really do a number on them. Hence it taking a while for the native Hawaiians on the Sandwich Islands to figure out that James Cook wasn't a god when they first met him. Julius Malema infamously saying that South Africa doesn't need farmers because food comes from the store. And the emergence of every cargo cult. Could it be such a stretch to believe that there might be something lingering in the collective psyche that causes country bumpkins to see trains and start screaming Lisan al-Gaib? It all reminds me of an experiment that scientists did to test generational knowledge and generational fear/trauma. Basically, they were trying to figure out why animals just seem to know things from the moment they're born. How do bees know how to build a hive? How does a spider know how to build a web? How do all primates by default have a universal fear of snakes and just know that they're bad? There is a fine line between instinct and also just being born with knowledge. The scientists decided to test this out with day-old baby chicks by projecting shadows onto the ceiling. They projected shadows of sparrows, airplanes, pigeons, seagulls, etc., and the chicks just didn't react. They just carried on milling around and being chicks. But as soon as the scientists projected a shadow of a hawk on the ceiling, all of the chicks immediately scattered in fear and ran for cover. These chicks are just a day old. How do they know what a hawk is, what a hawk looks like, and how do they know that it's dangerous? So, with a culture that has spent hundreds, possibly thousands of years running up to the great big lurching death machine with a religious zealotry so extreme that they will actively chuck themselves under its wheels and also allegedly, even throw their own children and babies in front of it. Could the desire to do that have been passed down generationally, where we arrived at the point where Indians feel naturally compelled to run up and fuck with the giant 300-ton death machine rattling towards them at about 100 miles an hour? Probably not, and that's probably a giant pile of bullshit. I mean, you know me, I'm always more than happy to flex my noticing credentials, but I do think that one is a bit of a stretch. There's certainly plenty of scope to debate whether or not the juggernaut is meant to be a giant Jeep mortar and pestle until the cows come home. Reverently, of course. But from what I've been able to dig into, I don't think there's enough evidence to prove that trains factor into that equation. And considering how implicitly verboten the idea of human sacrifice is, I doubt that anyone will be able to properly test the theory anytime soon. Since sections of the populace sacrificing themselves to Ringo Starr is a really bad look for the emerging superpower push. But if a more solid link does exist, I'm more than confident that our friend at the Jolly Heretic, Professor Dutton, would be more than capable of finding it. And he probably wants to. Ultimately, I think that the main reason why so many Indians get hit and killed by trains is the simple fact that they just don't give a shit. I don't want to be mean or disparaging here, for once, but unfortunately, when you have an unfathomably massive population that's entrenched in a rigid caste system, even despite the caste system being out of legal force now, there is no way around the fact that life is just treated as much cheaper over there than it is here, which puts a real dampener on risk aversion. I've got a friend who once went to India and he swears to God that little children were playing chicken with cars in the street. So, why do so many Indians get hit by trains, especially when taking selfies? Well, Carl, it all boils down to honour and glory hunting. I hope that addresses your concerns to a satisfactory degree. The Indians are simply flexing. They're just not very good at it. I could be wrong though. It could just be the fact that 1 in 36 Indian children are autistic. And they just really fucking like trains.
Sometimes you just gotta get your hands dirty. But it's done. The power of the press prevailed and I've blown the case wide open. But was it worth it? The truth is out there, but will they listen? Or is this just another stop in a life on rails? It's hard to quit when you've been doing something for too long. I often wonder if my search for answers will ever end. I just got a call from my editor. Something about ghost people in Paris. Were they werewolves? Cannibals? Either way, I never did like snails.
Just before you go, I've got a live event coming up on Wednesday the 17th of September in London. We're basically doing a live panel show discussing Trump's campaign, his term, all the drama that's happened, the Epstein files, and we're going to be basically just discussing a lot of things about Trump, and it's going to be like a panel show, kind of like Have I Got News For You, but actually funny. And it's going to be me, it's going to be Lewis Schaefer, Alistair Williams, Nico DeSanto, and it's going to be taking place in London on Wednesday, the 17th of September. And you can buy tickets for it down below. These things are just an excuse for me to hang out with all of you and get very, very drunk. So, if you want to get tickets, you can buy them down below, and hopefully I'll see you there in London on Wednesday, the 17th of September.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody should subscribe.